Hello everyone, Stoney here. In the previous video we built the front and back plates for the torso. Now we will finish off the carapace with the skirt, hips, pauldrons and gorget. The skirt will go across the front and back of the armour, but if your costume is for a boy you can skip the front skirt, or if you want, make them a codpiece or even a sporran. I'm using 4 plates and 2 straps for each skirt. The plates should be just long enough to cover the front and back of their legs with about a 10cm gap on the sides. Each plate was given a chamfer on the front and back to help the skirt flex, and marked up to keep everything aligned. I put a very heavy bend on the plates which I later removed to match the curvature of the waist plates. You don't need much glue to hold the plates in place, and less glue will also give the skirt more flexibility. Leave about a 5mm gap between each plate and make sure the spacing is even. A piece of tape is a handy reference when gluing. With the skirt finished, use some heat to open out the bend before mounting it to the waist plates. I made a small riser for each strap as I want the skirt to sit inside the level of the waist plates. With the skirt in place, there should be plenty of flexibility so your kid has no trouble walking. Next we're going to build the hip plates. This is a tiered design that I really like, but you can come up with your own design if you prefer. These pieces are relatively small, so use some of your offcuts if you can. As before, chamfer the edges so they look thinner, and put a slight curve on the plates so they match the waist plates. Glue the top and bottom pieces together, starting in the middle and working outward along the entire overlap. This will also help hold the shape of the bend. The hip plates will need 2 straps, but since we want the armour to separate, we'll need to use a fixed strap on the back and a velcroed strap on the front. Here I've put the velcro strap on the inside of the hip plate, but I later moved it to the outside to make dressing easier. The hip plate should sit over the skirt to hide the edges and under the waist plate to continue the articulated look of the armour. Mount the fixed strap to the rear waist plate and the velcro straps to the front waist plate. If everything aligns, it should look even and still provide enough flexibility for walking. Now comes the fun part, the pauldrons. This is where you can get really creative. The tiered design I've done here is one of my favourites as it's really easy and looks great, but feel free to go nuts. Pattern out the top piece, making sure it's long enough to go completely over the shoulders and down below their armpits. Bend the top piece into the correct shape, then use it as a template to draw the inside edge of the flange. Here I'm making everything symmetrical, but you can make the front and back a different shape, or even have completely different pauldrons on the left and right. Since both sides of the flange will be visible, I'm removing the texturing with some sandpaper. This takes a while, but it helps if you heat up the foam a little. Pin the flange in place at the centre line and add a spot of glue so it doesn't move. Then pin the entire flange in place and start gluing it together a short length at a time. The important thing here is to squeeze the glue towards the outside face, as it's a lot easier to clean the excess off the outside edge than the angled edge. Carefully remove the excess glue with a craft knife, then give the face a sand to get it all nice and even. The second and third tier of the pauldron will be roughly the same size but a slightly different shape to allow for the angles. Make sure you measure and mark everything before gluing it in place so you get both sides looking the same. If you're having trouble trimming the excess glue off the inside edges, just use the nib of the glue gun to heat the excess up and spread it around so that it's smooth. The pauldrons are probably going to take a fair beating, so once you have the straps tacked in place, use a generous amount of glue to make sure they don't pull away. Mount the pauldrons to the shoulder of the front plate, leaving a 5mm gap and making sure the straps do not overlap the joint. This area is going to be rubbing on your kid's shoulder, so make sure you smooth out any excess glue. If everything has worked out right, the pauldrons should sit comfortably across the shoulders and still have a reasonable amount of movement. Last we're going to make a gorget to cover the openings around the neck. Use the chest and back patterns to trace an outline, then design your gorget to cover the openings. Make sure there is still a bit of room around the neck. Kids don't react well to tight things around their neck. Bend the plates to match the curvature of the chest plates and mount a couple of velcro straps under the plates to hold them together. This concludes part 2 of this series. In the next video we will build the vambraces, greaves and a helmet.